Tony counted it off. I'm going to play the count off because I've got a recording of Tony.
Gregory, doesn't surprise me.
And that first count off of 1, 2, 3, 4, all their lives changed forever.
All our lives changed forever, and it was an experience of bringing these two super confident New Yorkers and bringing them over to Glasgow and having them love our musicians and our musicianship and our ideas and songs, trying to get them to drink Iron Brew, which I think was funny. It's just like juicy food, like gum.
Liquid bubble gum, Jimmy used to say.
And then trying to find them a steakhouse.
We found a steakhouse, yes, they were quite happy with that steakhouse.
So that's how you keep New Yorkers happy, is you get them accustomised to Iron Brew and find them a place to eat steak.
And then after we record those backing tracks, we go on tour with Glasgow's finest Love and Money. And then we came off that tour feeling quite proud of ourselves and feeling quite wanted and accepted. And you and I flew to New York for the very first time.
Did things like write horn and string lines on the 45th floor of the Carnegie Muse, which was where one of our producers, Jimmy Biondelillo, lived. But there we were with the New Yorker magazine's building visible right through the window right across from me. Actually, literally living the dream. It was New York at its hottest, you know?
Yes, and I remember the horn section coming in to record Labour Love and Strength to Strength. They were called the Uptown Horns.
Uptown Horns.
My fondest memory is the trombone player was called Bob Funk. And I thought, surely that's not his name. It was his name.
Of course it was.
But another positive thing I remember, when they put the tapes on the tape machines that we brought over from Glasgow, I was slightly nervous at what was going to come out of the speakers. But when I heard Tony and James and Nigel come out of the speakers, oh, I was so proud.
Good, man. I didn't hear that. It was a good moment.
And then I could see the spooling engineers sort of raise an eyebrow when it started to come out of the speakers. So the whole thing about us going to New York with confidence, what you were bringing under your arm was your recording.
Quite a moment, that.
Yes, it was a very powerful moment.
Quite a moment.
Did I walk out the studio and leap up and down the corridor? Maybe inside my head I did. But I think I probably did leap up and down the corridor. Yeah. And because Labour Love and Strength to Strength had worked out so well, we decided to repeat the process. So Harvey and Jimmy came back from New York and we started on the album.
And I have a very, very tangible memory of being in rehearsal rooms with Harvey and Jimmy, just being completely New York. And there they were, in Sava, in an old Scottish Presbyterian church, converted, making music with us. It couldn't, in retrospect, have been better.
Our homegrown musicians stepped up to the plate and they delivered. I was so proud of them. I was so proud of us making the choices and picking that band. And then during recording of the album, the record company dragged us down to London to make the video for Labour Love.
Indeed. For some reason, I wanted to have the video portray a human being turning into an object, and then an object turning into a human being. So we were caked up like statues in white plaster, and then I was going to be trapped in a box. I mean, I cannot even remember what I was thinking of, but I thought that these two forces, these two ideas would cross against each other in the video. The guy who made it, Peter Christopherson, was a member at that time of a band called Throbbing Gristle. And the film stock was 35mm, absolute top quality film stock, and that was because he just made a Cinzano advert with Leonard Rossiter and Joan Collins.
And there was spare film.
And they'd spare film left, and so that was what was used to shoot Hue and Cry. I think they went down to the last reel on the day.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Getting your head down, sweetie. Sorry, good idea.
So after we made the video for Labour Love, we came back up to Glasgow traumatised.
Yeah.
And continued making our first album in Sava with the two Americans. And before we'd finished doing that, they released Labour Love. So Labour Love, the single, was released in June. And I remember we're its first chart position was logged in. Either Record Mirror magazine did it or Music Week did it. Harvey Goldberger, our producer, sellotaped up the charts on the window in the studio. So the first one he sellotaped up was 61. That's when it came in the charts. And the plan was that as it rocketed up the charts, it would inspire us to make our album.
Yes, that's the whole psychological strategy.
Did
it? No, I don't think it did.
Didn't quite work out that way.
because it sort of staggered about the charts rather than rocketed up. I mean, you were digging out all the numbers on this, and absolutely, I had forgotten that our single went down from 47 to 50, and that's usually like, you know, the klaxon sounds and the funeral bells ring, and that's you absolutely done.
But Radio 1, which is the biggest radio station, kept it on its A-list.
Yes.
So no matter what it did in the charts, Radio 1 didn't lose faith.
That's true.
And there must have been some moments.
Thank you, Radio 1.
There must have been some moments in the Radio 1 playlist meetings of thinking, are we still behind this track from these two guys from Scotland? Yes.
Kept saying yes.
So we'd finished the backing tracks for our first album, and it still hadn't gone into the... I think Harvey had covered half the window with all these chart listings, and it still hadn't got in the top 40.
As if we played faster, it would make them go up. You know?
But we'd finished the backing tracks for the album, so we had to stop this. So I think Harvey and Jimmy, I often think about them, they must have left a wee bit dejected, thinking, right, that didn't really work out that well, they didn't really rock it into the charts. But Labour Love refused to go away.
But we had this amazing 10 days in July, which turned the fortunes of the record round, and we did the most incredible pile-up of pop TV.
So when Labour Love started to stumble, and in that week we'd been booked to do the Roxy, which was independent television's alternative to Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
And that got the record into the top 40. And then 3 days after that, we were booked to do Wogan, which is it was the big Saturday night TV show, but he also did them during the week. So if you weren't quite big enough, you did the Monday Wogan. So we did the Monday Wogan. And then because Los Lobos, the American band, didn't get their work visas to do Top of the Pops that week, at the last minute, they looked down the chart and ours was the next one. So they contacted us, and we got the call in the morning saying, you guys are booked to do Top of the Pops.
Yeah. And we did it. And we seized it. And I look at those young men, knowing that the record has been staggering about just outside the top 40, completely focused and completely funking and souling out and giving it as much as we possibly could. And it worked.
I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
So after that week, we fly back to New York. We go into the studio, and Harvey pinned up all the chart positions again. Because the last time we saw him, it wasn't in the top 40, but the next time we see him in New York, it's a top 20 hit record. So he embraces us when he sees us, and it's all joy and laughter and tears, and he's got the whole window covered in the chart positions of Labour Love. It's not finished yet,
No.
as he said when we got there. And then an old friend of yours followed us over to New York to write an article.
That's right, Stuart Cosgrove, who then went on to become a major deal on Channel 4, director of Channel 4, but he was the media editor of the NME, the New Musical Express at that time. And he flew over to interview us at the Davitt Centre in New York, and gave us, he's obviously a Scottish guy, Stuart Cosgrove, so he was doing the big thing about young Scotsmen on the rise, and how do you feel about, how do you think, do you feel you should be here, do you feel justified to be here, and all that kind of stuff. But we made the front cover of the NME, the hippest music magazine of the time.
Further interruptions to making our album, we get the call that Labour Love has climbed the charts again, and we have to fly back to do another Top of the Pops performance. So Pat and I pack our bags, off we go back to LaGuardia, and we got off the plane. Our record company boss, Ray Cooper's got a book full of NME covers. And then our manager met us when we got to the studio, and he said, you're playing with U2 in 2 days as well.
In Glasgow.
In Glasgow.
We spent too long in New York doing this comedy album, which will be out in September. Many words I can describe, I'm feeling knackered, ecstatic, happy to be home.
So we do the gig with U2. I remember Bono standing side the stage watching us. He said, you know, I'll make sure you're okay. Sometimes U2 audiences can't be the most welcoming. But it was a homecoming gig for us, wasn't it?
The homecoming gigs, we had a great reception. I do remember sitting in the green room of the SECC in Glasgow, just coming off from our performance and then catching either a videotape or a live version of ourselves on Top of the Pops. Again, it doesn't get more choice in 80s than that.
Oh, yes, it does.
Oh, I'm afraid you're correct, Gregory.
Passion the words into your face.
So after our gig with U2, we fly back to New York to keep working on our album.
Yes, with our eyes crossing that way.
And then the phone rings again. And it says, Top of the Pops, don't want you to perform another performance because Labour Love's gone up again in the charts. They're going to show a clip of the video and they're going to show a little bit at the end. But what they're going to show at the end is there's 3 bands in contention to support Madonna in our UK leg of our European tour.
At Wembley and Leeds Roundhay Park.
And the 3 bands are Level 42, Wet 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 and Hue and Cry. So you better fly back just in case.
Just in case.
So I would imagine Harvey and Jimmy, the 2 producers that were making our album, were slightly frustrated by this point. So we flew back and we got the call that it was us that were chosen to support Madonna at these gigs. There's so many stories about this, but the one that I want to tell is when we got down to Wembley Stadium, it was Madonna's birthday. So her tour manager bought her a horse. She was riding around Wembley Stadium on a horse, as you do, saying thank you for her present. And her tour manager was a guy called Chris Lamb. And Chris Lamb's sister ended up in our hometown. Mm-hmm. We didn't know that. I didn't know that. And he phoned home and said, hey sis, how you doing? Everyone okay? And his sister just had a baby. And my mother, our mother, who was a midwife, was looking after her post-birth. And my mum was the biggest Hue and Cry salesperson you could imagine. So when Chris phoned home to see his sister was okay, she mentioned, oh, the midwife's been great, her boy's on a band called Hue and Cry. Now, Chris, being the tour manager, was aware that there was a decision to be made, and after that phone call, he called it, that we were going to get the support.
Yeah. Which just to anybody watching just seems like, so how much luck is involved in the music business and how much planning? Well, you know what? Equal amounts. But you don't get lucky if you're not in the game, and we were totally in the game. The most memorable thing I remember about opening for Madonna was getting slightly too enthusiastic and beginning to slide down the rain-spattered stage, which was a dipped stage that went down like that. And I remember thinking, I'm about minutes, if not seconds, away from arsing myself in front of 85,000 people on this night at Wembley. And I don't know how I managed it, but I think maybe I was wearing my classic Doc Marten shoes, and I sort of managed to sort of slowly inch my way back up while singing Princess Kiss up to a dry patch so that I could get into a perpendicular position. That's an ambition-setting experience. You think, okay, I can handle this situation, bring it on.
And then after those shows, just to cap it all off, as a gift to Pat and I from our record company, they took us back to the airport to fly back to New York to finish this album, but not take any old flight to New York.
The flight to New York.
Which was?
Concorde.
So Pat and I took Concorde back to New York to finish our album.
Please, green activists with whom I have the hugest amounts of sympathy and solidarity, don't be too angry at us, because it was acceptable in the 80s.
So we eventually finish this album and we come back and we prepare for our first UK headline tour, and we also release Strength to Strength.
Oh, brilliant. A brilliant record, and a record that I think you said, and I think this is correct, that we actually wanted to be coming out rather than before Labour of Love. And it didn't do as well as we thought it would do. But, you know, that we were in a total roll up your sleeves moment, and the response to that as well. Gig more, do more promo, get more out there. We believe in this music, and also we really believe in the album.
The Seduction tour we did at the end of the year was really well attended. All the gigs were sold out.
And what experiences, people were totally enthusiastic. It was a good start to having a relationship with audiences, because we got all the elements, I think, from enthusiasm and appreciation at the same time.
So the album's release goes into the top 40, and then we get asked to go on tour with Simply Red after our own tour.
Yeah.
And off we go on tour with
Mr. Hucknall.
Mr. Hucknall. Yeah, he's not the best pool player, Mr. Hucknall.
I have a lot of respect for Simply Red. I've liked a lot of their material over the years. So it wasn't, we weren't all hugging arm in arm, friendly Care Bears to each other. I think there was a sense in which we were the up and coming and they were the established. But I think it made for a great night for the audiences. I mean, they certainly were served up with a blue-eyed soul in seriously generous measures.
You must have been tired though, Pat. You must. I mean, just think of the year that we've had. So
we were exhausted, Greg.
To go on another tour at the end. And then after the tour, getting close to Christmas, Pat and I, on our last legs, were in London ready to go home, and they gathered us together and presented us with our silver discs for Seduced and Abandoned. The album that we started at the very beginning of the year.
Struggled to make in the midst of all our celebrity doings and throwings, and ups and downs.
All the obstacles that were put in front of it, managed to sell 60,000 copies in its first year of release. It proudly was mounted onto the wall in our living room. There was a story. Our backing vocalist Davey, who's loved by many, including us, put a lanyard round it and went down the pub with it hanging round his tummy like some kind of hip-hop jewellery, and just stood there all night. I'd like to think there was some truth in that story.
But what a year, what an amazing year. When you reflect on it and you look at all the kind of combinations of bits of luck, but also preparedness and stamina and talent, but honestly talent, you know, to kind of, and talent that kept turning up and kept trying to kind of hit the mark. It's a bit of a lesson. It's hard work and perspiration and inspiration, and also just aspiration as well. Trying to make amazing music, and then trying to give it the best shot to be a classic music. And I think we've maybe achieved that. But this 1987 shows the amount of work you've got to do to make that kind of classic happen.
And all the planets aligning for us, and for everyone else. The record companies, our management, promotion people, the designers.
It's a great moment.
The tour managers,
yeah.
The booking agents that booked us for all these TV shows.
Sure.
The support we got from Radio 1.
Yeah.
Unbelievably endless support from Radio 1. Gary Davis, thank you so much. Steve Wright, thank you so much.
I like to think that people were supporting our records because they could see the quality of the records. They could see what we were trying to do. The records weren't about nothing, they weren't about idle romance, they weren't about trivial sexualities or whatever. They were actually about the world and how the world could be a better place. And I like to think that people could immediately hear that in the songs and were supporting that. That's my idle fancy. You don't really know, but I think we got extra help because I think they could hear the quality of what we're trying to do. And I'm grateful to the moment, and you know, if it happened again tomorrow, I would enjoy it rather than complain about it. But it's a great experience to have had, a great experience.